This week in Restaurants, senior editor Joe Guskowski and I talk about CPK's rebrand that wasn't, the latest in restaurant bankruptcies, and Panera's new leadership. Hey, Joe, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Jonathan's on vacation this week, so if anyone's looking for him, he's in Ireland. Today, I thought we'd start talking about CPK's rebrand. Yeah. This was a really cool, so this was kind of a funny thing, actually, that CPK did to rebrand for its 40th anniversary. And so, Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about what they did this week with this?
Yes. So California Pizza Kitchen on Tuesday started releasing a bunch of videos and stuff on their social media platforms, basically introducing sort of a new look and feel for the brand. And this is what I would describe as sort of like a hype beast style, sort of internet culture inspired rebrand with a lot of sort of slightly outdated lingo, people in black hoodies and loud electronic music. And it was kind of over the top. And they're saying, this is us. This is the new CPK. And they put this out, on all their platforms. They overhauled the whole website. They had a merch store with, you could buy stuff with the new logo, et cetera. And 2 days later, they revealed that this was fake and part of a campaign that was sort of like supposed to be like a midlife crisis for the brand as it turns 40 years old this year. And so I spoke with their CMO this week about it and why they did this. And basically she said, they wanted to do this kind of preposterous rebrand to get people talking online, even though they were fully expecting people to think it was stupid. And that's sort of what happened.
Except people didn't think it was so stupid, right?
Some people liked it. Some people liked it. And it depended on the platform. So like people on LinkedIn, when they posted it on LinkedIn, they got a lot of support there. People thought it looked cool. And, but in other apps like Twitter, X, Instagram, they were kind of getting trashed. So, which was all part of the plan. I think the whole idea was do this kind of in your face, over the top thing for a brand that is, laid low kind of for years and get people, basically confuse people. And so I think that seemed to be successful. The second half of the campaign had to do with this actress, Busy Phillips, who used to work at CPK and is a fan of the brand. They did this video where she comes into the restaurant and sort of sets them straight and says, this isn't who you are. And so I think they're going to continue with that then for the future. I don't know how long the campaign is set to run, but they're kind of doubling down on, CPK is what it is. It's not this other thing trying to be cool for the young people.
Well, which it says a lot about sort of the generations and how they perceive, certain brands. I'm in LA and CPK, is a beloved brand here, but it's also, it's one of those legacy brands that really kind of needed a little refresh. So there's kind of some lessons here about how to go about doing something like that and making it more attractive to a younger audience. Even in the parody, the way they made fun of it. But it also just strikes me that on LinkedIn, where probably there are some older users, who have maybe been through that midlife crisis already, I can see them kind of seeing this as being, it's young and fresh. Whereas you have the younger platforms or platforms that appeal to a younger demographic, maybe not say exactly the same way, but.
Yeah. And you're so right that, I think a lot of brands are going through this kind of thing right now. Like Cracker Barrel is one that comes to mind. Older brands that are trying to refresh themselves for a younger audience and how hard that can be. And so it was interesting to see CPK sort of poking fun at that whole idea.
Right. While doing it, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
So it actually gets people talking, right? I mean, that's the idea is people are like, oh yeah, I haven't been to a CPK in a long time. What's going on with them?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They haven't been doing well. I mean, for the past decade or so, they've been shrinking, and you probably see it. out there in California more than I do here, but it seems like they had faded.
Yeah, and I feel like I've written about so many CPK rebrands, over the past decade, that it's, here comes another one. And this one is really, I think, more, it's not so much changing, the decor or the menu or anything like that. It's really more just about trying to get people's attention again, which is kind of interesting. But, whether or not the food is really going to be the thing that brings people back is kind of the question. I mean, this brand has a long and interesting story behind it. It's interesting, but right now for casual dining, as we know, I think everybody's trying to do the Chili's thing, and that's just a really hard it's a hard unicorn to catch. It's a hard bit of magic to grab hold of.
Yep. It's more than just marketing, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of casual dining, now we have Bar Louie. This week's restaurant bankruptcy. Tell me what happened there.
Yes, another week, sadly, another bankruptcy in the casual dining segment. Bar Louie filed on Wednesday. This is their second bankruptcy. They also filed in January 2020, right before the pandemic. And I think, what seems to have happened is they filed in 2020, pandemic hit. So that's a terrible year for them all around. And they just never bounced back. They never have gotten back to their 2020 sales levels. And I have not seen their first day motion yet, in which they sort of outline what happened. But I think we can all kind of deduce that, they've faced the same problems that other casual dining chains have over that period. But this one looks particularly bad. I mean, just based on the numbers, they have between $50 and $100 million in liabilities and no more than $10 million in assets. So they're deeply in debt. They closed 14 restaurants. And so they're probably down to somewhere maybe in the 40s in terms of location count. They were up, in the mid hundreds within the past decade. So yeah, just another sad one.
Yeah. And once again, I have to point to, we just recently did a 5 years after COVID series. And, one of the things that was mentioned through several of those stories was the fact that, the impact of the pandemic took a while really to kill some of the brands that it was going to kill. I mean, this is what we're seeing happening now. And all of these bankruptcies mention in some form or other, either accumulated debt or having to deal with leases and, the various issues that have come up over these past 5 years because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Or at least that's what they're blaming, and the inability really just to get back on track. And so, it took time there were long, slow, painful deaths for some of these brands. And it's not necessarily a death. I mean, we'll see what happens out of the bankruptcy. Bankruptcy can, revive some brands. Although it's, I think, a more rare story to hear, but, I don't know Bar Louie. It's out of Chicago, right? Can you tell me about the concept? What is it?
It was founded in Dallas in the 90s. Beer, cocktails, sort of like pub food, shareable plates. That's about all I know about it, to be honest. It's smaller, obviously. And they closed a lot of locations around the Midwest leading up to this filing.
And there's a lot more competition in that space now, probably than when they first got started. So
yeah, like the gastropub trend kind of really took off, I would say, over the past 15 years. Yeah.
Although here on the West Coast, beer focused concepts are not doing well. We're seeing a lot of breweries close, and it's really kind of sad. I'm a fan of good beer, but it just doesn't seem like that trend has legs anymore. I feel like people are kind of over it.
People aren't drinking as much, I think, especially those young folks,
Yeah. Joe, get out there and have a drink.
After this. I'll go buy a 6-pack after this.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the fast casual world. So this week I wrote about the latest for Panera Bread, which is under Panera Brands, which is, one of the few fast casual chains. We don't really know how well it's doing. It's certainly looking for ways to create efficiencies, And so, it's been a turbulent few years with a lot of board changes, and the Panera Bread's brand's CEO stepped down in January. Now they have made the interim, Paul Carbone, the permanent CEO, which is good for the brand. He was CFO before that, and and somebody who really knows, I think, what Panera Bread, as the primary of the three brands, needs. And so we'll see. But Panera is in the process. They just closed two more. They will close in May, two more of their fresh dough facilities, about 140 people being laid off. And this is after two being closed in California earlier this year, 5 closed last year. They have 9 left, and they're still not saying that they're going fully with this fresh on-demand bread. They're switching to third-party bakeries that are par baking and freezing the bread that is then finished in the cafes. And so they're still calling this a test, something they're learning from. But, it does look like that seems to be how the way they're shifting the entire system. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But now they've got a permanent CEO to address some of the issues that Panera's been struggling with over the past.
Does the fact that he's the CFO, do you think, point towards, the possible IPO coming to fruition soon?
Yeah, that's a really great question. All of this, the changes that came for Panera Brands were all set up to take this group public, and the group being, Panera Bread, Caribou Coffee, and Einstein Brothers Bagels, the various bagel brands under those. And, that was their intention when they made the announcement, I think, going back to 2023. And then the market turned on them. This is JAB Holding, who's the parent company based in Luxembourg. And this is what they had done for Krispy Kreme. So they had done similar spin-off with Krispy Kreme that was successful. And so they were thinking they would do the same for Panera Brands. But, with the market turning, it just, the various other things happening with Panera Bread, there was a data breach. There was, their charged lemonade, was alleged to have killed and injured a few people. And, they had some issues last year. They've made a lot of executive changes. So now I feel like now we have Paul Carbone coming in to really kind of take this brand wherever they're going to take it. And those are my dogs barking. I apologize for So we'll see. Yeah, but it's the next step in kind of an ongoing story that has been pretty interesting to follow.
Yeah, it may be a sign of like some stability after a few, I don't know, call them rocky years for them. Yeah. Let's hope. Let's see what happens with it. Okay. So Joe, that was our week. And next up is Joe, who's going to change his clothes and come back to tell us a little bit more about Nvidia and Yum Brands. But first, a word from our sponsor, a very quick word from our sponsor and my dog.
Keep up with what's happening in the restaurant industry with Restaurant Daily.
I'm NRN Managing Editor Leanne Zinsmeister.
I'm RB Managing Editor Heather Lally.
We bring you a specific look of what's happening in the restaurant world from brands like McDonald's, single unit mom and pop shops, and hot button issues like inflation, tariffs, and more.
Start your day right with the Restaurant Daily podcast every weekday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Check, where I, Joe Guzgowski, talk really fast about one big topic in restaurant tech. This week, why Yum Brands' partnership with Nvidia is such a big deal. Yum, the owner of Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut, and Habit Burger, is joining forces with Nvidia, a big tech company, to bring more AI to its restaurants, including the drive-thru. Nvidia is best known for its computer chips, which power a wide range of AI programs. A lot of companies use Nvidia's chips, so the fact that Yum is doing so is not all that unusual. What makes the deal interesting is that Yum actually worked with Nvidia to build its AI voice bot from scratch. That's pretty unique in the restaurant industry, where most chains using AI will buy it from a vendor. Yum is building theirs in-house, which it believes is a competitive advantage. It means that Yum will be able to scale that technology faster and more affordably across its tens of thousands of restaurants with Nvidia's help. Yum already had big plans for AI, and now it has a giant world-class partner to help it make them happen. Just because Yum has an ambitious AI strategy doesn't mean it will work, but Nvidia's involvement takes things up a notch and, in my opinion, makes Yum the clear leader in the restaurant AI race.
So hi, Pat. this week, I actually wrote about a fast casual Italian concept called Due Cucina out of Seattle that's growing. But you also been writing about fast casual Italian. What have you been up to this week?
Yeah, so I wrote about Piada Italian Street Food and the new pockets that the chain introduced. So that's a fast casual out of Columbus, Ohio that's been around for a while. They now have 58 locations. And I spoke with Matt Harding, who's the chief concept officer, and he told me the story behind these new pockets. They really created something that would be compact enough to fit into their to-go bags, because everyone loved the Piada sticks, but they were too big for the to-go bags. They would bend and fall out. So they created these Piada pockets with different kinds of fillings, and they're really a good item to put in takeout and delivery orders because they travel well, they retain the heat, and they're just like snack sized and really compact enough. So I thought that was really interesting how they kind of repurposed the Piada sticks, which are really popular, into these Piada pockets.
Well, and this has been a huge month for snacks because of I guess there's some basketball games going on or something's happening in the sports world.
Definitely. It's March Madness time. And we're now about to start the Sweet 16 this week. So it starts out with 64 teams, then it goes down to 32, and now we're at 16 teams that are in the tournament. And a lot of chains introduce items that are really, March Madness friendly, I guess. Whether you're eating in the restaurant or you're ordering in to have game watch parties at home. So like Pizza Hut introduced this new pizza that's dippable into their trio of new ranch sauces. So that's, it was actually created for March Madness parties. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then KFC also had a Dunk It bucket that they introduced where they have mashed potato poppers. I guess they repurposed their mashed potatoes into these little bite-sized poppers that you could dip in the gravy or into some of their other sauces. So it's a real big, I guess it's a time where you could dunk and dip a lot during March Madness.
Well, yeah, I can see why the reason why it's also a trend more broadly, right? I mean, right now it seems like everybody loves to dip in sauce. It's the thing.
Definitely. And Subway actually introduced a new sauce this week too. They finally got on the hot honey bandwagon. So they introduced a new sweet hot honey sauce.
I'm going to say it, Pat. I'm going to say it.
Spicy.
It's spicy.
It is spicy. So spicy is still making news. We can't get away from it.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like, especially for things like March Madness, because it goes on so long, this has just been an incredible sales opportunity for restaurants. I mean, they're really going all in on trying to capture that audience.
Definitely. And it's not just the quick service places that you would, that sort of make a lot of sense, because even like the Melting Pot, which is a fondue concept, they're selling fondue packages to have at home so that people can have watch parties and make fondue at the same time.
You don't have to have a pot to do that?
No, I think they send you the whole kit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And even a steakhouse, like a kind of high-end steakhouse in New York called Porterhouse, they're doing March Madness promotions because they want people to come in the bar. It's not just to sit at the bar, but they supposedly have TVs in the bar and they have lounges and they have special items that they're promoting for March Madness. Mostly, burgers and steaks and beers, but everyone's getting in on the action.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And is there anything else going on in the food world that we should know about this week, menu-wise?
Let me think. Well, I'm looking into texture as like a characteristic of food that a lot of people are exploring now, because texture at crunch, crispness, that's really getting a lot of play on menus now and on social media. So
you gotta hear it. You gotta hear that crunch.
Hear it. Right. So I haven't, still exploring that, but that's something that I think we're going to hear a lot more about in the next few weeks.
Okay. Thanks so much, Pat Kobe.
Sure. Thank you.
And that should do it for This Week in Restaurants. This was edited by Spoons, as always, with artwork by Nico Hines. You can find this on Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts. I'm Lisa Jennings. I'm executive editor of Restaurant Business, and thanks for joining.